You've started your creative business, grown it for the past few years, and now what? The question comes up in just about everyone's mind at some point. Can I sell the business and cash out? Well, the simple answer is yes, but it's not a simple explanation. So for this video, I asked a friend of mine who's a highly experienced business broker, Jim Roddy, to join me in answering this question for you the right way. Now, we're going to hear why people buy, what builds value, and help you understand what the process is so you're ready for when the time comes. Now, the first thing we need to understand is what it is to sell a business and where our thinking is commonly wrong.
There's a real misunderstood set of criteria when people are looking to sell their business. First and foremost, one of the main misunderstood points are it's all about the finances and all about the historic performance, which to a point it is, but that's a great starting point and a great indicator that there has been and potentially is a solid business. But people are buying future prosperity, not historic prosperity. We, as business brokers or good business brokers within in my community, we focus on intellectual property and what we call maintainable future profits. It's a little bit more abstract when it comes to creative businesses because there is a lot of personal IP in there. So when I would suggest you have a creative business that relies largely or to some point on your input, there has to become a point in time when, if you're going to sell, which one day you will do, you have to detach your brand from the brand.
So if we're at the beginning of what it takes to sell a business, why do people buy? And we're going to answer how to detach in just a minute.
People buy a business ostensibly because they think they can do it better than you did it. So they're interested in where you've taken it, but they're only buying it because they think they can do something more or different or both.
And we need to look at what then creates value for a buyer to come in and look favorably at our business. After all, they're buying the future of it, not the past. Now, I pose this question to Jim, being that even as a solo creator, what is it that shows value in the business and what does that look like?
Transferable value is, I suppose, the way I describe it. There is still value there because even as a solo operator, you've got contacts with maybe some impressive clients, maybe some contracts that will withstand someone else coming in. But typically speaking, when it's creative, there is a part of the owner, the part of the person delivering the outcome contained in the IP. There's fewer opportunities to sell that business to another entity, be it someone else coming in as a solo operator or taking the business and blending it into a bigger studio. And also what may happen as well is you may be required to work align yourself to the new business to an extended period of time to make sure that your transition is blended and not felt too uncomfortably.
This is fairly normal, especially for small businesses, to engage with this extended engagement time. It helps the new owner solidify the relationships that you've built and transfer the authority and credibility that you have built. Now, offering this can give you more opportunities to find the right buyer. However, we need to balance this without becoming invisible in the business. And here's how.
Building to step back and not be the face of. Be renowned within the business, but not required on every shoot or every editing session or every new client meeting. You're the face, but you're not the operations. A person who's working with a company and has been for a number of years, they refer to the person. She's a great photographer. He's a great marketer. He's a fantastic video. It's not the brand, and that's the delineage. That's a delineation you have to achieve, because you'll always be the reason people pick up the phone, not your brand. And one of the things you can do very early on is to step back and create the we, not the I. And in your communications, never talk about what I can do for you or what I will get back. We, the team. Again, it's in the early stage, it's an illusion to a point, but you're signaling intent within you. And the more times you say something in openly or via, you're reaffirming your own intentions. If you continue talking I, you will always be I.
Whether it's an illusion at first or you bring on a team, this transition of communication gives you flexibility and primes your clients to work with more than just you. Now, this helps in building your brand, which is vitally important. And this is what Jim had to say about it.
When you're doing creatives and your creative people helping other people, your brand is everything. You've doubled down on what it is you want to be known for. Because here's the other thing as well. To me, creative marketing, it's a universe of various options, or endless options. If you're able to be known for a specific outcome, it doesn't stop you doing everything else, but it makes you the go-to, the spoken of solution. And then you can, it's the old inch deep, a mile wide, or a mile wide, an inch deep. But that's what I would suggest. Someone in your community there, if you're looking to be everything, you're going to struggle. But if you can really niche, that's where the gold is.
Getting a feel for the value of brand, you will probably be starting to think about how you show up in this marketplace. Now, this is of course a lot about the public-facing side of the business, but don't forget about the internals, the nuts and bolts that keep things running. This is an area that Jim knows well. Along with future prosperity that we mentioned earlier, these are the other things you need to have in place.
When people are buying your business, when you're positioning your business, what happens thereafter is predicated on degrees of confidence. So people coming into your business, they're looking to see what can they assuredly put their hat on going forward. Now, the best thing you can have is contracts that run 5 or 6 years. Now, contracts have their downsides, but let's assume it's all upside for the moment. So if 60% or 70% of your business is contracted and it's secure contracts, written contracts, not verbal, not handshakes, not, she'll be right. If you've got written down contracts that are transferable in nature to the income, gold. That's what they're looking for, because that's the business that they'll base the future business on, because that's guaranteed income. And then they can spend their time then finding new business to supplement, to go on top of this. For projects, as a rule, they're great because they're big ticket, and they take up a small or an extended amount of your time, but they're not guaranteed to as repeatable income. They're singular in nature. With both of these and projects as well, what you can flag as quality is if those projects are with businesses, entities, people that are noteworthy in the industry. Effectively, you've got a seat at their table. It's all about assurance, confidence that what you're selling is something they can take and grow after the event. You'll be expected to have probably a more protracted handover period, and there could be an element of retention as well, because it's so personal. It could be aligned to if it doesn't happen, then a certain amount of the price we pay for your business. And this is typical in, I wouldn't say it's personal relationships, but in when you're selling accountant practices, for example, if between over a certain period, if volume falls off, that volume then gets taken off the price. So there could be a caveat in there that says if this doesn't, if you're underscoring how much this person loves you and only you and will not, then we're not prepared to pay for something that was never going to be ours in the first place. So it's again, it goes back to, it's in your interest to be liked, but not to a point where they can't operate without you. People are looking for, when they do due diligence, they're looking for areas that you haven't been, let's say, necessarily honest on, or you've run that would, in a way that would suggest there's concerns about if it's shoddy here, then we need to look elsewhere. It's a good ecosystem of process, procedures, and policies. You always should have policies and procedures. And the other thing, you guys in your world are very much IT in terms of in apps and but you will be different to your major competitor, and they'll be different to theirs. There's always a degree of uniqueness because you choose to use certain apps in a certain way for your betterment, and that's your IP. And it's not to say that the next person may use it all, but you're demonstrating an environment that's streamlined and makes sense. There's way too many businesses I look at, they've got an impressive array of big branded apps that don't talk to each other. And it's just an environment of workarounds. So having something that seamlessly works, that interconnects, that doesn't require you or somebody else to intervene unnecessarily, that's again, not necessarily monetarily gold, but it's a great tick in the box for someone wanting a business that is more than less likely to work after you leave.
With this point of systems in mind, I asked Jim what makes for good systems and processes. Now, this is something that I'm a big proponent of, and why I templated my Notion video production workflow that I've actually also linked down below. But here's what Jim said.
A good process doesn't require someone to think outside the box. It's an all-encompassing way of working that you know fits into the people downstream. So if you do this, the people beyond you will be able to do their job. Automations, it's, to me, that's as a mainstream business broker, they're increasing in prominence, but they're not necessarily central to a business sale. It makes life easier and it makes sense. But at this point in time, again, it would have to be industry specific and sales specific. But as a rule, it's not the most important element of what goes on behind in the office. And systems are those systems. I have. Let me step back. Most of the people that come to me to sell their business start with, I'm looking to sell my business. And 95% of those have already made their mind up. They're just looking to see whether I'm the guy. And amongst those, most of them didn't have an exit plan. They arrived through personal circumstances, be it fatigue, health, an array of different reasons. The reason I'm saying this is that they didn't have an exit strategy, so they weren't challenging themselves in terms of, is what I have the best fit for what someone's looking for? And systems is one of the mainstay places that always is obvious they weren't planning to sell, because this doesn't work in a way that is attractive, and it's never been challenged. It's been added to. It's almost got it may be a CRM, and it's got a whole heap of carbuncles hanging off it that make it work, but you have to work around it. Whereas had they taken the time for someone to come in, this could have been, for not a great deal of cost and not a great deal of inconvenience 2 years ago, been something that would be beholden and a great bit of IP. So to me, processes tell people what to do. Systems make it all happen seamlessly, and automation adds a degree of convenience again and speed. But systems are the main thing for me.
Now, with all this being said, I want to leave you with one really important note about systems that I've learned over the years, which is when you build systems, these are not a process of implement and forget. They're a process of implement and iterate. Your business will run so much smoother and more profitably when you adopt this mindset. Now, speaking of systems, you're going to want to watch my full video production workflow linked here on the screen.